Welcome to the Magic on the Inside podcast by the Sisters Enchanted, where we chat magic, hot topics, personal development, and good old-fashioned life. Brew up something delicious and sit with us for a spell. Welcome to this episode of Magic on the Inside podcast. I'm Sarah, founder of the Sisters Enchanted, and I'm joined by the always lovely Anna.
Hello.
My sister, co-founder.
Extraordinaire.
Today, we are talking about astrology terms demystified.
Dun dun dun. That's all I really have to add.
Astrology can be so confusing.
Yeah, it's something that has been in my life for many years, and sometimes it still confuses me.
One of the things I find helpful is just to understand the terminology. And then when somebody says something to me, or like when we're doing our full moon and new moon podcast episodes, and our lovely program director and astrology teacher, Sarah Milne, says something like, the moon's going to be square something. You do her accent so well. I can't do it. Man, maybe I'll hit it.
I think that you just need to just dig deep, Sarah.
Do you want to try it? Give us your best, Sarah Milne.
I cannot.
You can. You do it all the time.
I always just say that she's chopped to bits.
She does say that. We had Sarah in tears, crying, laughing one day when Anna was talking like Sarah on a meeting.
I have to be inspired to do so.
The moon is square something. Sound like Sarah. I can't do a British accent, turns out. Neither can you right now.
That's because you've been going far. I don't know. What if? See, look at this is why I always had a dream that one day I always wanted to be one of those kids that do
what's happening?
Stage.
Yeah, did you?
I did, but I was always so terrified of people seeing me. I had the stage fright.
And so you're having stage fright over being Sarah Milne?
Yeah.
Here in this room?
Yeah.
Where it's just us?
Yeah. No, and whoever listens to this.
Yeah, but they're not here right now.
I know, but now I know that they're around.
Okay, then. Let's just move on. So, but when Sarah said something like the moon is square Uranus, I don't know, and it's going to be dreadful on all of us. But you don't really know what she's saying because you don't understand the terminology.
I don't think I've ever heard her say the word dreadful.
Yeah, no. See, that's why you should know. We will all not be chopped to bits.
Just chopped to bits.
We are going to talk today about those terms so that everybody better understands them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that.
Yeah. We also have our Expedition astrology program opening up for enrollment really soon, and a free birth chart basics class. So we'll put all the links to everything where you can find it. Sarah teaches in that class with Anna.
Yes.
And also our other astrology teacher, Nick. They all come together with different areas of expertise, backgrounds, and put together a really cool program.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I concur.
Yes, I think it's a very special program. I think it's different than a lot of astrology programs. It's as good as all the other astrology programs, but also different. And I think that that's one of my favorite things about the program, because astrology has just been so samey for so long. And obviously there's things and rules that you have to follow. But I feel like we're really just kind of pushing the mold on what astrology is and what it could be and how it can evolve and become so much more than what it's being taught as regularly now. So,
yeah. In our class, it just got a whole overhaul too. Fresh coat of paint, some remodeling.
It did.
And there's a whole bunch of shadow work incorporated into it also. Some mythology.
It is my shadow work is definitely a great application for astrology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I concur. Okay, let's get on with this. So we're going to talk
You
about
should
some.
keep trying just throughout the podcast. Just give it a good old shot.
I'm not good at accents. What's the other one you do really well? The like Russian.
Yeah.
I can't do that either. You're really good at these things, and I'm like, just sound like I don't know, a warbledy warble.
A warbly is it a Dungeons and Dragons monster?
I don't know.
Warbledy wobble.
Gosh. Okay.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. I don't know. What do you think is a weevil?
They get back up. And then we really wobble to the other side of the room.
But do you know what they are? Like, what is
No,
one?
I don't know.
Me neither.
Do you know what a natal chart is?
I do.
I would show it so. What if you just now you were like, I don't know, you stumped me there. I'd be like, awkward.
I'm easily stumped, but I mean.
All right, let's start with natal chart. That's the first one on my list. I have a list of terms we're going to talk about. Natal chart is number 1 on that list.
It is. It is a chart. It is her chart. It is
100 points to Gryffindor.
Woo. It is a birth chart. It is the blueprint of the sky at the time, date, and place that you were born, and it's a chart showing you where all the planets and all the zodiac signs were at the moment that you came into this life.
So a natal chart is the same as your birth chart. It's a synonym.
Yes.
Chexy. Got that one. It's probably the easiest one.
Good.
You know what a birth chart is? At least like know what one looks like in theory. That's a natal chart.
Yes.
Moving on to another one.
Okay.
Transit.
Chart. I feel like this is a test.
You gonna tell me it's a chart again?
It is a chart. It is another
100
chart.
to you.
It's another chart, astrologically speaking.
You're doing such a great job.
Associated with astrology. It's another chart of the sky. Except it is it's applying a different time on top of like your chart usually. So a transit chart shows, I mean, it doesn't have to be, it's the chart that's showing like what's kind of like going on at a different time so that you can see how it affects.
So like right now, you could pull a transit
chart for today.
For tomorrow.
Or tomorrow.
A year from now.
Yes.
So you can pull the transit chart for any date and time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just look at it if you were curious, like, oh, this thing happened on this day. I wonder what the planets look like.
Yes.
You pull a transit chart. And if you wanted to look at like a year from now as compared to your birth chart.
Yes, you could apply it to your birth chart.
You could look at them together.
Yes.
All right. So natal chart is you.
Yes.
Transit chart is at any point in time.
Mm-hmm. And
you can, if you wanted to, see like, oh, I'm traveling on this day.
Yes.
I wonder what's going to be happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at it compared to your chart.
Right.
And
correct.
Make the assumptions you will make about it.
I know like a lot of people pull transit charts for like their Saturn return, especially when it's like in the past. So that's like around like your 6th, 27th, 28th year of life. A lot of people after they've like passed their Saturn return, they like to go back and reflect on it and like pull the chart next to their birth chart for like that time in their life and like really reflect on what actually happened because it's supposed to be some of the most challenging times of your year, and that's one of the more popular, I guess, times to apply a transit chart in your life.
Yeah. Like it.
Indeed.
Next up, an uppity up is a progressed chart. And that's it for our charts. A progressed chart. So I'm going to read from my notes here because I want to make sure it's super clear. So we'll just birth chart is you, transit chart is any point in time.
Yes.
So your birth chart never changes. It's always your birth chart.
Indeed.
But a progressed chart adds 1 day to your date of birth for every year you've been alive to create a new chart that you can use to chart your growth and transformation and to use as a guide for a coming cycle. Mm-hmm. You can pull progress charts annually or to explore the impact of big life changes and see what is on deck for you in the next cycle or phase. Progress charts show how your planets and houses progress through each sign, learning lessons on the way. As they do, they reflect shifts in energy and cycles of growth and maturity. Yes. So it's basically your birth chart, but shifted to account for changes.
Every day that you grow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that for me anyway, the only real thing I've pulled a progress chart for myself, but I look at the moon because
Mhm.
just like the moon, day to day moves quickly. Your progressed chart moon uh, could say a lot about how you are experiencing your shadow and emotions and subconscious right now.
Mhm. And even, like just the time of life changes, even as, you're born under a certain sun sign, but like you're supposed to kind of like progress through like the next, few during your lifetime and hit on all of those and grow and change. And so it's a good way to see if you're learning lessons, if you're learning lessons, if you are making strides towards like what your soul's purpose may be,
Mm.
in this lifetime, to make sure that you're making the right footholds.
Yeah. So you
Mhm.
could pull a transit chart if you wanted to see what happened on a certain day, or
Mhm.
like what the planets will look like on a day in the future. And a progressed is more about like your personal growth.
Mhm.
So that's looking at you would go to a chart generator, choose the progress chart option, put in your day of birth, bam.
Tracks.
There you go. All right.
Tracks.
Nexty upsies. We're getting out of charts
Mhm.
and we're into some other terms that I hear a lot.
Mhm.
I'm the one who came up with this list because there are frequently asked questions that we get, and
Okay.
also ones that are said a lot in our astrology forecasts. And I was like, well, I bet these are confusing. Okay, the next one is a square.
Okay.
If you tell me it's a four-sided shape,
It is.
is that it? Is that all you got?
It's an aspect.
It's also helpful.
So there are, yeah, it's an aspect in astrology. So there are many, which I think the rest on your list are aspects. And those are, so astrology is numbers and it's geometry, it's math, at its core. So in charts, there are angles. So a square, are all
Right angles.
right angles. And it's an aspect between planets that is difficult. So a square is a challenging aspect that typically, because there are four corners to it, it's something that you run into 4 times kind of in your life, like a theme that comes up that challenges you to like bang that corner, and get through it. But it'll be a repeating theme about 4 times because it has that square. And oftentimes, especially when Sarah Mill and I talk about squares, we kind of talk about like a boxing ring or a wrestling ring where you're in the corners and like you're waiting to be tagged in, but you have to like get through the fight to like get to the person to tag in on the other side. So a square is one of those aspects that's a harder aspect. It's one that challenges you a little bit, because you have to navigate it.
So if there's one in your birth chart, that's a challenge you might have.
Right.
And if there's one happening in the sky right now, that transit chart, that's just something that, we could all just maybe universally have happening.
Right.
And then how that might relate to us could be different.
Yeah. Like, I guess one of the, astrologically speaking, a common square to look for is one between your sun and your moon. And that sometimes indicates like early childhood issues between like your parents and things like that. So that's like one of the common ones to look up at first is if you have a square between your sun and your moon, because it can talk to your early childhood and then reflect later on in like your own relationships and so on and so forth in your four squares.
Fascinating.
And deedly doodles.
All right. Next, conjunct. Conjunction, junction.
What's your function? So conjunction is two planets that are that are close together, and
right on top of one another.
Yes, and
within 5 degrees.
Yes,
specifically per my notes that I did not write.
So they're conjunction. So they're a conjunction. So they're kind of like mutually receiving off of one another. They're kind of in flow and share sign because they're so close in degrees, that they work together because they're kind of in a tight huddle.
So square is conflict and lessons, and conjunction is like togetherness, amplifying that spot that there is.
Yes.
All right.
Sounds good.
I like it. We have two more on our list
I like
here.
your summarization. That's why this is like when you can see that Sarah's master's degree in teaching comes through, because Sarah has a really good way at like circling back and really hitting the point home. And I'm like, yeah, the answer. That's right. You did.
Okay. Two more. Two more. First of those two is cusp.
Cusp. Cusps. So cusps.
Not to be confused with bicuspids.
Bicuspids.
What's wrong with me?
Or drinking vessels.
Intervention.
I think that we both do. On this day.
I don't know from what, like just from myself, probably.
On this day, if you can't tell, Sarah and I both, I think, need a nap. And maybe some pina coladas on the beach where no cell phones or anything are attached to us. We probably both just need like a day of rest.
Yeah, where we're like parallel to each other, but not touching each other or looking at each other,
right?
Speaking, but like just, in the same space,
just kind of arms width apart from each other, but like not touching each other.
Yeah. Like be with me, but like don't look at me.
Oh gosh, that says so much about our lives just in general, because like Sarah and I are super close and we're sisters, and like typical sisters are like, I don't know, I think that they're kind of like lovey hugs and stuff, and Sarah and I very rarely were patters. Yeah. We like say you did a good job today, like, or we'll call each other and be like, I have words of affirmation coming your way, and then we have to take like deep breaths before we deliver said words of affirmation. You know? Right. We're like, you did a great job today. A cusp. Gentle pats. Reaffirming pats. So cusps. So this is a really great time to, if you haven't heard it, go back to the Magic on the Inside podcast about pies. Because it could probably be really helpful in your knowledge of astrology and cusps. But really, an astrological chart is made out of 12 houses. So it is like a pie cut into 12 slices. And the cusps are where like the knife went into the pie. So they're the lines that divide each house of your astrology chart. And cusps are kind of confusing because usually a zodiac sign rules a cusp. And sometimes cusps are intercepted, where a sign like duplicates, or a sign is skipped. And so usually it goes from like Pisces to Aries, but sometimes in a chart you might see Aries twice and like not see Pisces, or Aries twice and not see Taurus. But it's the dividing line between each house of your astrological chart, the cusp.
And you'll hear people mention it because if they have a planet or something at the end of one sign and right at the very beginning of another, right. A person really could display the energies
of
both. And that's what you'll hear people say, that they're a cusper, quote unquote. Like my daughter, she's the very end of Cancer, and she could just easily have been a Leo, and she is, I think,
displays many Leo.
Yeah. So she's definitely like a cusp sun for sure. And so, but it's that like you're so close to and my moon sign. Isn't my moon sign? Didn't we discover that recently?
It's a cuspy.
Yeah, maybe. The end of Aquarius.
Possibly. It's really interesting because having especially when you read intercepted houses, like we do in expedition astrology, not only do you have that kind of theme of being somebody who's a cusp person, but then you have also that added layer if you're somebody who has intercepted houses, and the fact that you actually kind of lack sometimes the energy of a sign because it's not prevalent, because it doesn't rule a cusp. It's very interesting.
Speaking of ruling sign.
That's
the next one we're talking about. And you kind of already talked about it. So let's just zero in on it and make it super clear.
So ruling is every planet has, and every house in an astrological chart has a ruling sign. So the first house in an astrological wheel is always ruled by Aries. That doesn't mean that you have Aries there. And again, this is a great time to listen to the pie podcast episode. Um, but it's always ruled by Aries, just like the planet Mars is always ruled by Aries. So if you have Mars in your chart and it's in Virgo, its originating underlying energy always has a little bit of a flare of Aries because it's the ruling sign of that planet. So every house, every planet has a ruling sign. Some have dual ruling signs, like Mercury is Gemini and Virgo, but they all have them. So they have a ruling sign, and that sign is always the underlying energy of that house and or planet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I hope I'm not misdirecting our conversation, but when you do have, because we do intercepted houses.
Yes.
So you could have, so an example for me, I think, is my fifth house, which is Libra, then Scorpio. And I have planets in my fifth house that are in Scorpio, but my fifth house starts in Libra.
Right.
So when we look at it that way, Libra is the ruling sign
because it's on the cusp
of that house for me.
Yes.
But the planets I have in the fifth house are in Scorpio. So when we're looking at a chart and doing a birth chart analysis, yes, those planets are in Scorpio in the fifth house. And though that whole chart is over influenced by Libra, plus the regular energy of the fifth house.
And that regular energy is Leo.
Yeah. So then that all comes together. This is really why learning astrology is so powerful, and not just getting like the auto generated birth charts you can get online for free, or in like an app or a horoscope, because all of that is generalized information.
Right.
And when you have an astrologer looking at the pieces, so like my example of the fifth house in my chart, you could look at it and say, oh, I've got these two things in Scorpio in the fifth house. Like, yes, that's true. And my fifth house is intercepted.
Right.
Ruled by
So
Libra.
that Scorpio energy that does those planets doesn't thrive as well as it could because Libra actually rules the house. And then always there is an underlying Leo energy because that is the sign that rules it originally. Yeah. So actually you just probably unpacked a lot, because now this is up for discussion of another even another day, because Sarah and I have oftentimes talked about her Scorpio in her fifth house. And
it's crazy.
It is, but then just even the realization that Libra is on the cusp of that house adds another layer to it.
That's crazy.
That makes it so that there's even more to unpack here, and that we were only just scratching the surface by looking at the planets in Scorpio, that there's even more there to be seen. Yeah. I have multiple houses intercepted, so I have lots of kind of road speed bumps in my trip. That's kind of how I explain like intercepted houses. I've got lots of speed bumps on the road to Anna's life, because you're like driving and then you hit like these intercepted houses or hard aspects or anything, and it's like a speed bump that like you have to keep going, but you can't go too fast, or you might like hurt yourself, or you can't go too slow, or just prolongs the inevitable, So it's like the speed bumps in your life.
Yeah, people, anybody listening who knows astrology, my Mars and Pluto are both in Scorpio. So if you know astrology, you know that can probably be wild. And knowing that fifth house is ruled by Libra, though, probably don't need to put me in a handcuffs yet.
Not yet.
Libra's helping with that.
Not yet. Indeed.
We've not reached that point yet.
No.
All right. So those are some astrology terms demystified for you.
Demystified.
We're going to throw the link to the free birth chart basics class wherever you find your links, or if you're listening to this, and also our Expedition Astrology program. It's going to be open for just like not even a week, I think like 5 days for enrollment. And it's a comprehensive class with lots of hands-on help from the teachers. Yeah. And we're not going to offer it for enrollment again to the general public until I think May 2022. Yeah. So you want to check it out. It is the most comprehensive certificate program with this level of hands-on support from professional astrologers that you can get hands down from any program that I have seen out there. So,
and Nick, Sarah, and I are all very involved and have lots of new ideas of how to support anybody who takes Expedition Astrology with us. And it's also just great for just anybody who is, an intuitive, who loves divination and wants to add an extra layer to their craft or how they do things. Because, like I said, I think that here in Expedition Astrology at the Sisters Enchanted, that we've definitely kind of respun the wheel of what astrology can really bring to your life. And I think that we're really teaching it in a different way and delivering it in a way that you can make astrology your own.
Oh my goodness. And I'm not even have zero desire to be like an astrologer. Like that's not happening in the cards. And but the things I've learned from astrology from all of you have completely changed the way I look at myself, my relationships, communication, like hands down. Astrology has a lot of areas where I've just like resisted, fought to be right. I've realized like, oh, that's just that person. Like there's no, or that's just, it's not even that person. We're just complete opposites in that area. And that's just not, there's no point in trying to come together here because we are just not, there's no coming together.
Right.
No. So like,
no, it's not because anybody's either wrong or right. It's just because it's just two different mindsets, two different ways of thinking. It's a great handy tool to learn, like you said, relationships. Even if you have children, your relationships with your children, your parents, the amount of things that it can shine a light on are just
super powerful.
Yeah, super handy.
Yeah, get your handy dandy notebook. All right, that's it. So check out.
Is that a Blue's Clues
reference? Yes. My kids have been playing it on the Alexa. They've never seen the show, but somehow they like, I don't know what happened.
Somehow they found it.
They were yelling things one day at the Alexa, and Alexa started playing a Blue's Clues game, the Amazon Alexa. So now they say, hey, Alexa, play Blue's Clues, and it plays these games with them, like riddles and guessing games. I don't know.
Who knew?
Yeah, I certainly did not.
Knew?
I'm so sick of that Alexa. I want to throw it out a window like 100 times a day. First thing ever. Anyway.
That'll be the first transition of your
Scorpio.
When you start throwing Alexas up the window, we might have to reevaluate.
Would not put it past me to do that. I'd be like, there was this issue.
I'll get a picture in a text message of an Alexa on the ground.
Like, I apologize to everyone.
As a leaf file.
I know what I've done wrong. Whoops, it's not my best moment.
I'm sure she lived.
Yeah. Is she still singing through the Blue's Clues?
Oh my gosh, that would happen to you.
All right. We'll see you in the free class, hopefully in Expedition Astrology. In the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review. It helps us out a lot.
It does.
And we'll see you in the next episode of Magic on the Inside. Have an enchanted rest of your day ahead.
Bye.